Okay, right. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
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 So I had asked before I started recording, what's the nature of the day? Do you have a way to explore the nature of the day? When you wake up in the morning, is it part of your morning process?
Honest answer, no.
Huh?
No.
All right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Is that a no for everyone?
I was
Yeah,
thinking
no.
about it.
Thinking about it or doing it? Do you have a way?
I would say no. It would be more of just a no.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Right? Because it's something that comes up in the work that we do.
Yeah.
The nature of the day. I mean, you should be masters at detection by now. You have a coin in your pocket?
No, it's in my coat. Hang on. Let me go get one.
Or anything with two sides, a playing card, a tarot card for that matter.
Yes, I do.
Anything, right? A coffee cup, as long as it's not full of coffee. Anything that you can like.
Get a coin.
Huh?
Yeah, it's just gone to get a coin.
All right, good. Good.
Got one.
Try my jacket pocket. Yes.
Ion, have you gotten your distillation train set up yet?
No, I also the last 2 days I had to move stuff from one state to another.
Ah,
So,
okay. Right.
yeah.
Interesting. Are you closer?
I'm definitely closer. I've got my boiling beads in this weekend. I have everything set up, and I'm just ready to rock at this point. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you got a coin, Mark?
Coin? Yeah.
Somebody? All right. Flip it.
Yeah.
Don't think anything. Just flip it. See what it lands. Heads or tails. What is that? It's a big coin.
Playing card.
Playing card.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
Mark. Yeah. What? Heads or tails was it?
Tails.
Tails.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Backside.
Tails also then. That's interesting.
Ooh.
Now,
You guys.
people think having a divinatory nature is something that requires tons and tons and tons of work, and there's a part of it that is correct about that. But when you're dealing with something as did you flip it too?
Yeah, I got heads. I got heads.
Okay. Let's work into this for just a second, because
They are Aquarians.
it's always going to be grass backwards, right?
Yeah.
Stole that from you, by the way, Ion.
That's right.
Ass backwards. Took that one from you.
Exactly.
I just want to start with this. I want to clear something up because, well, there's a couple territories that we can work into with this, but there's a difference between a way and the way. And I hope you have some clarity in your own minds about the difference between a way and the way. You could say the way would be kind of the primordial evolutionary signal of creation. A way is how it expresses itself. Understand the difference? So you can kind of hopscotch your way through time, and you can come across several ways. Yeah, but they all originate, they all emanate sort of from the same place. And
Yeah.
one of the aspects of being human is the ability to tap into a divinatory nature, okay, or having a let's skip the word divinatory and say a predictive nature. Now, do you know the difference between predictive and prophetic?
Ooh.
Do you say
I don't think I've ever heard the word prophetic.
prophetic, like a prophecy? Yeah, Nostradamus. Yeah, that kind of thing. The difference between a predictive nature and a prophetic nature is when when you have something prophesied, you generally don't know that it occurred until it happens. Yeah, because it's generally speaking, it's clouded in the language of the higher emotional center. The higher emotional center, which is metaphorical, it's analogies, similes, right? Those sorts of things. It's not like there will be this, this event happens just this way on this particular date. It's generally it's couched or coated in the language of the higher emotional center. See as I go down this path how many things we could go into, right? Because then you have to ask the question, well, what's the difference between the language of the higher emotional center, the lower emotional center, the thinking center, and the higher thinking center or higher mentality? I wonder if you've worked those aspects out just yet. I mean, we know the language of the lower emotional center, don't we? It's basically like and dislike. It's really it. Yeah. The language of the thinking center could best be summed up by the words, does it fit? Does it match? Do you understand that? Do you understand why?
No.
Okay. One of the reasons why it's so difficult for people to question their beliefs is because they have been imprinted in the thinking center. Generally speaking, if someone has a particular belief and they haven't actually challenged those beliefs, it's something that came in from the outside and impressed itself upon the thinking center. And from that point forward, once the thinking center says, okay, got it, everything else that is related to the territory that the brain life comes across, and utilizing the thinking center, the brain life comes across, is going to say, does that match what I already believe to be true? If it doesn't,
Whether they're aware of it or not.
Whether they're aware of it or not, exactly right.
Yeah.
If it doesn't match, then then it sends out the centuries, the centurions. And they march up and hold position. It stopped. Thank you. Now I'll stop shouting at all of you. I was washing something over there. There's some lab equipment, but it will post guards. Yeah. Or Griffin in some cases, but it'll post something and says, does this match? If it doesn't, then get out of here, generally speaking. Move along. Right? If it matches, it goes to the next layer and say, how well does it match? Is it 100% match? Is it a 50% match? Is it 75%? That sort of thing. And so there's all these layers. And if it's in complete agreement with your, now I will say this specifically, with your beliefs, not with your knowledge or understanding, but with your beliefs, then it'll accept it as fact, whether it is or not. If it doesn't, it has to go through various kind of chambers. If it's a 50% match, usually what'll happen is it'll go to a new category of a maybe. Yeah. If it's a 25% match, it'll go to a category or a box in the mental life that says possibly or probably not in some cases, but I'm open-minded. Yeah, this is where that expression comes from. Anytime someone says, I'm open-minded, you can guarantee that you've already landed in their 25% category, because then they're invoking something else, right? They're invoking this personal integrity type of thing, because who goes around saying, I'm closed-minded? Nobody. Even the most closed-minded person doesn't take that stance with others, does it? Do they? Yeah, they don't. Anyhow. I'm going down this path because I want to take some time today to rethink and re-emote and reconnect with some things that we may have taken for granted. Okay. It's one of those sorts of things, right? I mean, you've been asked before, haven't you? What's the nature of the day? You know, people get weird and spiritual all of a sudden, right? They just got out of the loo, and all of a sudden they're spiritual, and maybe they kicked the cat because it was in the way or something like that. But now they're detecting the nature of the day. That's a bit absurd, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you have a process for it? Now, I had you flip a coin because you can actually get to the point where you can detect the nature of the day by flipping a coin or flipping anything. Don't flip the cat because they always land the same way, but almost anything. Buttered bread, don't flip that either because it'll always, I always ask the question, what happens if you butter a cat's back? Which way is it going to land?
Perpetual
It always
motion.
lands on its feet, right? And buttered bread always lands on the butter side.
What was that?
Perpetual motion.
What is?
Perpetual motion, right? We've invented it.
Toast always lands butter side down, and the cat always lands on its feet. So if you butter the top side of a cat
Yeah.
like it's toast,
Yeah.
it will just hover and keep spinning, because the power of the cat to land on its feet is equal to that of the butter wanting to land butter side down.
Okay, I shouldn't have asked.
Which would indicate, Sam, that there must be a quantum entanglement between butter and paws.
Yes, yes.
Just before you carry on, when you asked if people have got a way of knowing what the nature of the day is,
Yeah.
the reason why I said no is because although when I wake up, I try to tell to feel what the day is, but without having a reliable way of knowing if I'm right or not. That's why I said no.
Okay, right. Because, well, what faculties are you relying on? Are you waiting for the whisper in the ear? What are you waiting for? When you ask yourself, what's the nature of the day? I respect that you try.
Yeah,
You're in a better position to know.
yeah. It's more a case of just trying to feel, is it, what's the weather like? How's the weather going to affect how I'm going to feel, how everybody else is going to feel, what's going on in the world, etc. But it's not really, what shall I say? An effective and trustworthy way of knowing what it's really like.
Okay, good. I agree. Because you're leaving two other centers out of it. You said feel many times, right? Are you man number 1, 2, or 3? Naturally born that way.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
If you want to get, if you want to utilize that technique for determining the nature of the day, you have to ask all 3 of those. You have to say, what does it feel like? What am I sensing? And you should know, right? What tactile sense. What does it sense? What? No, I'm asking. What are the impressions that the body can receive?
I was going to say the 5 physical senses. I'm very thankful most mornings when I wake up. I give thanks to the ability to have my basically go through all my 5 senses. When I do detect the day, I gauge it up on a number of different things also, like the way people drive, the way they talk to me, their speeds. Are they fast? Are they slow? Are they angry, happy? That gives me a lot of indicators too. I find that I try to shut down when I'm at work, so I don't really pay attention to things.
Switch it on and off, right?
But I beg your pardon?
You want to switch it on and off, right? You know that.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I do something very similar to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's um, some years back, it was colors. I mean, I would get up and I could actually have the color almost poke me in the eye. And without really trying, I would just look around and go, wow. But I never pursued it further, unfortunately. I never really delved into that
Yeah, you
color
can
of the day,
walk.
color of the moment.
Sure, you can go on a walk and see what's singing to you, right? Certain colors,
Exactly.
in the environment, like a red flower versus a purple flower, both
Right.
vibrant, but one over the other might be more vibrant to you, sort of thing. One thing I would say is realize that each of the 5 senses go with a specific center. Do you know this? I'll let you work it out. Which goes with which. I'll get you started. Again, you don't have to solve it right now, but it's something to begin to kind of work into for yourself. Is which center out of the 5 centers are the eyes connected to? Which ones are the ears connected to? Nose. I think that one's kind of easy, isn't it? Emotions, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the first line of defense of like versus dislike. And it also has the ability to connect you back into something. Yeah, if you walk into a place that smells like the cookies your grandmother used to make, all of a sudden you're having impressions and the wheels start turning in you about your grandmother and about that house and about all of these sorts of things, those kinds of things. Yeah, I think the eyes might be rather obvious as well.
I would have to say instinctual. It's not really though. Just as quick in their nature, very, very quick in their nature.
They wouldn't say sexual. It's tricky, right? Because the problem with having discussions about the sexual center is virtually nobody on the planet has a functioning one. They're able to procreate. That's not what I'm talking about, but supposed to operate doesn't generally operate that way. I would definitely put the eyes with the sexual center. And when it comes to instinctive and moving, they're basically brother and sister. So it's going to be difficult to distinguish those two. One is inward bound, one is outward bound. All right. It's good. Yeah. We're not solving it. We're just chewing on things. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something to consider and ponder. But going back to this, like the basic premise, if you're going to use the tactic of observing your own impressions about things, then a great way to start is asking yourself various questions like, what does the body sense? I won't say feel because that will get muddled up with the emotional center because of our language, right? We say I feel the warmth and I feel happiness. It's a bit ambiguous, isn't it? So I will say, what does the body sense? Generally, the body is capable of sensing temperature and pressure. Those are the things. Yeah. So you can take this kind of detection, can't you, and say, how does it feel, both physically and electrically? It can be a sweltering. Is that right? The right word?
Yeah.
Really hot day out, and yet feel electrically cool. Happens. So you can do that. So pressure, again, you can sense your own pressures in your aura, or you can. It's actually interesting because you'll find different days things will have a different sense about them from a pressure standpoint. Sensitivity about it. So that's that, isn't it? And then so that's the body, the emotion. Again, start with like and dislike. I know we don't want to get fixed in like and dislike because there's a higher order of the emotional center, but it is a good foundation. Do I feel peaceful? Do I feel agitated? Do I feel this, that, and the other? Those sorts of things. Get into those emotions. And then the mentality. Again, it's usually about compare and contrast, but you can figure out if you're winning lightly or heavily, buoyant or heavy, those types of things. So it's a good way to start. I'm going to give you a few options. All right. Who can name a couple ways? I'm going to throw the word divination back in there, but who can name a couple of ways that people in history have used to divine something, divine the future? I'll give you one.
Like types of divination.
Yeah, I mean, here's one.
Okay, yeah.
Here's one, isn't there?
Tarot.
Yes.
Right,
Tarot.
Yeah. We were just talking about an interesting one in class actually. It was called scalpomancy, where they would use bones and then like a heat rod, and then they would like crack the bone and then they'd flip it over, and then like basically the cracks in the bone that it would make would then interpret it into symbols, and then they'd actually like solve interpretations on the bone itself.
Yeah. Okay. So let's work into this a bit. So we've got categories now, don't we?
Yeah.
We've got. I'm gonna do this. Let me grab these out here. We can just take a tarot deck, cut a card at any particular place, right? Ooh, 16. Yeah. That is a. We're going to do this one today, aren't we? Right. We're already going to uproot and dismantle some basic ideas or notions or things like that you might have about this type of work. Okay, is that fair? I didn't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair. But you can take that approach where you select something, and depending on your knowledge of the meaning of it, you can begin to detect. But what does it require beforehand? I mean, if you don't know, perfect. If you don't know the tarot, yeah, and you're just like randomly picking something, you're going to end up invariably drawing this card every single time. Fool. Right? Because you haven't done the work into it. Isn't it? I mean, I'm not saying you haven't done the work into it, but if a person hasn't done the work into the tarot and doesn't have a connection with it, then all they're going to get is pretty much something random. Wouldn't you agree? What about this? The pendulum. Some people do detection or divination with a pendulum, right? Where they swing it.
Oh,
It goes forward, backward, or left or right, or circles, or these types of things. Yeah.
yeah.
If it's just a pendulum, in other words, let's debunk something here. The pendulum doesn't know anything, nothing whatsoever. Okay. And the proof of that is if you hang it from a hook in the middle of the room, and given that there's no like air disturbances or those sorts of things, once it settles down from its inherent energy from you, once it settles down, ask it a question. See if it does anything. It won't. It'll sit there because it's obeying the laws of physics. So what helps a person with their divinatory nature when it comes to a pendulum is their own neurology. Yeah, because there are what are called micro movements that happen in the fingers. Yeah? And something in you, something that is unconscious or subconscious in you, when you're asking a question, already has the answer to it. And so the pendulum will begin to move based on micro movements that are happening in your own neurology that will give that answer. And you know that they prime it, don't they? They like people who use the pendulum for this type of work will say, first of all, show me yes, right? And maybe it'll begin to go this way, and then they'll stop it and they'll say, okay, now show me no, and maybe it'll go this way, or vice versa. You see, what they're doing is they are creating a baseline for what's to come. So what they're really asking their neurology is twitch a certain way, unbeknownst to me, twitch a certain way if the answer is yes, and twitch another way if the answer is no. Yeah, and then they have this amplification going on, whether it's yes or no. And then when they're asking the pendulum, what they really should be aware of the fact is that they're asking their own neurology, their own nervous life, what the answer to the question is.
Oh.
Now, so that's one kind. That's more body centered, really, but it does take into consideration the mentality and the emotions because all of those go into control the nervous system. It's not just body. Right? If you've ever done soldering, they have this thing called surface mount soldering when you're working in electronics, and it's components that are very, very tight. I'm talking, you need to take a pair of tweezers and a microscope, yeah, and be very, very careful with it. You're looking through a microscope while you're trying to solder a component in if you're doing small soldering on very small things. The best way to do it is to take a shot or two of whiskey beforehand.
I like this.
Huh?
I like this idea. Yeah.
Or rum, if you have the iPad carrot. But take a shot or two of whiskey. Wait 5-10 minutes till it starts to kick in, and it will calm your nerves down. And then you don't have, I mean, if you've ever tried to do this under a microscope, you'll see just how shaky you are. And we've done exercises in the past, haven't we? Right? When we worked into electrobics beyond where the Eminent stopped. Remember those with the various tensions and those types of things? Yeah, we worked into these types of things where you can actually stop you can actually stop the jitters, the shaking and all this type of stuff. Yes. So I was going into that because of what's, how the pendulum works. Tarot works on a different principle. Tarot works because it is 21 or 56 or 104, however many types of natural laws you've worked into that are coded into a picture form. And if you have a connection with those laws, then something in you is going to be able to pull that card. Yeah, that's going to give you that signal or nature of the day. That's the way it works. But it's your connection to it. Otherwise, it's just a random picture, Might as well have this generative AI draw a picture of the nature of the day, and it'll be about as accurate if you haven't worked into something like the tarot. You see, that's the way it works. Now, I had you flip a coin at the beginning, and if you have a connection with the law 2, you could use that as a divinatory nature. Yeah, they do it with the I Ching. You know the I Ching?
Yes.
Yeah, they have yarrow sticks or coins or whatever the case might be, and they throw them 6 times, and it comes up with a hexagram that then corresponds to a particular natural law. And by the way, it's the exact same thing as the Enneagram minus the triangle in the center. So if you have a connection with the Enneagram, you could also work around it. We'll just do the you can work around that symbol instead of doing solid and broken lines, and it's the same thing because it's the 6 phases of the law of 2. There's 7 really, but the 7th is always all combined together. And so you could actually work out the nature of the day just flipping coins. You could. And of course, that's the ideal that it's going to come out to: positive, negative, up around it, positive, negative. That's the out to. And anything that turns out to be not that way, like if this point was positive and this point's positive, will show you what's changing or what's off about the day. It's your faculties is what it boils down to, and also your work into it. If you don't know the Enneagram, or haven't had a ongoing, well, in my case, decades-long relationship with it, it's not going to do anything for you. You're not going to learn anything about it. until you pick it up as a practice and you sit there with a coin and you say, what's the nature of the day, right? And you come up with a certain bit of information, but you don't know what it means yet. And then you go through the day, you observe the day, you remember how the coins came out, right? You go through the day, you observe the day, and then you go back to your notebook and say, okay, this is what I got on this day with this particular sequence. Do it again tomorrow. Same thing. Flip your coins. Ask, what's the nature of the day? Flip your coin. Yeah. And then go through your day, come back, take your notes. What you're doing is you're creating a bridge between your subconscious or unconscious divinatory nature or predictive nature and a specific physical action. Now, here's something that's very important. All what would be called magic, yeah, like white magic, black magic, somewhere in the middle, that type of stuff, always has to have confirmation in physical reality to be effective. You cannot manifest something like this, yeah, doing nothing. Let's say you want it to rain. Right? Kind of a common magic in the early lifespan of humanity as a tribe. Let's say you want it to rain. Well, you wait for a day that it's raining, you stand there, and you do some particular movement, right? And then you wait again for the next time for it to rain, and you do some particular movement again. Now, I just made this up on the fly, all right? Hopefully it doesn't rain. You understand? The idea here is that you begin to create a bridge in the physical world with the unseen worlds of force and powers. Okay? And now you got a drought going on, and you're the shaman or doctor of the community or whatever the case might be, and you've got a history where you've built up this relationship between a specific physical movement and rain, and lo and behold, you do this to help your community, your tribe, and it begins to rain, right? Because you physically confirmed it so many times, you've created a tuning fork, you've created a link in the astral light. There's nothing more to it than that. Yeah. And I mean, churches do this, don't they? You go through a specific ritual, oftentimes in a church setting, where the priest gets up there and goes through the movements, goes through the specific rituals to begin to release a certain type of force. Yeah, everyone gets fizzed up and charged up and goes about their week with that kind of energy about them. There is nothing magical in the act unless it is put there specifically. Okay, this is why you don't need to go off and read books, by Eliphas Levi or all of these other, characters throughout history, Cornelius, Agrippa, or all these sorts of things. You don't need to do that to be able to create change in physical reality. You already have the tools. You just need to be able to do it, right? And what worked for Eliphas Levi, for example, won't work for you unless you put in the same kind of effort that the man did. Yeah? You're just doing a dance. Well, okay, actually, that's not entirely true, because the matter is that there have been millions and millions of people who have done these types of rituals, and so it's created a print in the astral light. And so you might stand some chance, but probably not in the beginning. If you repeat rituals and formulas and those sorts of things, you might stand a chance, right, quicker than if you just establish it yourself. But that's how it works, because what it's doing is it's connecting the lower with the upper. Understand? Questions? I didn't know what we were going to work into this today, but I mean, a lot of times people start off, don't they, with what's the nature of the day? I would say the nature of the day is divinatory, predictive, unseen worlds based, because of what we're doing. Now, had you flipped a coin before the meeting, or flipped it 6 or 7 or 8 or 20 times or whatever, get a pattern going, you would have had great information for your notebook, huh?
Hmm.
Find your own way into this. That's all I'm saying. Find your own way, right? If you want to go cracking bones, go cracking bones. If you want to look at, the remnants in your teacup or your coffee cup,
Yeah.
yeah, start seeing the symbols that occur to your subconscious. I mean, that's what that's based on, isn't it? You know this in like Greece and Turkey and whatnot. They serve that really thick coffee.
Mm.
Well,
Yes.
it's like mud at the bottom, isn't it? Yeah, and then they
Yes.
take the saucer and circle it around, tip it upside down, wait for it to dry. Yeah, and then if it sticks, then it means a certain thing, and if it comes loose instantly, it means another thing. And they look inside, and whatever symbols they see from the remnants or the remains of the coffee grounds that hopefully you didn't drink because they're very chalky, is what they tell you about whatever question or whatever concern that you've brought to them. This is how it works. But it's not that. You see, you can't learn it by going, I see a bat. Now let me go to my reference manual and find out what bat means. That's baloney. Yeah.
Mm.
What does it mean to you? That's the real question. Because, I mean, Bruce Wayne, right, means a different thing to Bruce Wayne than it does to a zoologist that's studying bats, or to a guano collector that's just using it for the nitrogen content. Yeah? It's about what it means to you. And you'll see things that have certain meanings to you. And you can develop a predictive nature that way. Dreams. Let's talk about dreams for a second, because this is an interesting area. There really are two kinds of dreams. There's the one kind of dream where it is literally just getting rid of waste throughout the day. Yeah.
Right.
Brain life collects all kinds of things that you're not even aware of throughout the day. And just like your digestive system, it has to have some way of getting rid of it. It can't excrete well, it is physical, but very light. It can't excrete a physical substance, so it creates an electrical substance that it excretes. And those are called dreams. That's one kind of dream. Now, the equivalent, and I don't want to get gross with this, but if you're trying to interpret every single dream that you have in the night, that's the equivalent of going through your stools to determine what you ate. All right? Not a very sanitary thing. Now, there is another kind of dream which generally doesn't come from you. It comes from the unseen worlds itself, and especially as you get further down the line of living a more and more connected life, you'll begin to have these sorts of dreams. Yeah, where you're laying there in bed, aware that you're laying there in bed, and you've got, all of these figures surrounding you. For example, imparting knowledge. This has happened to me. Imparting this knowledge to you. Things that you couldn't know, absolutely couldn't know any other way. And you've probably heard of the Pendragons, and there's many other schools out there in the astral light that will come and help you along the way, impart this knowledge. Those kinds of dreams will always invariably be very specific to your journey. And you should interpret them in the context of what content you have in you about it. Make sense? But I would advise you to leave the other ones alone. It's literally going through the garbage of the day. There's a third type, because there has to be a third type, and I'll say what this is. So there's the elimination, there's the enhancement aspect, and then of course there's the maintenance aspect of dreams. Yeah. And the maintenance aspect of dreams is a lot like a puzzle. What I mean is, imagine a giant jigsaw puzzle that only has a couple pieces when you're a baby. Yeah? Maybe you've filled in a corner when you're a baby. And as you go through adolescence or childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, those types of things, you begin to fill in more and more corners, more and more pieces, more and more clusters. This is one of the brain's functions, is to just try and understand the reality in which it lives. Because it's so foreign here for it. If it had its way, it would be born with a mental body and just, flitting around learning everything it could about the universe, but it's trapped. It's trapped in here. And so it drags your butt from place to place and doing one thing after another, to understand and collect the pieces of the puzzle. But it doesn't do that during the day. It brings it all into the cat star, right, which is this area just above the head. You can feel it. Take your hand. Feel it. Bring your hand out to the side first. Okay. And then it doesn't matter right or left. It's okay. It's going to be there either way. Start to bring it in until you feel a pressure change. You'll actually feel it on the top of your head too. You feel this kind of pressure change all of a sudden right there. Yeah. You found your cat star. That's basically where your mental life lives. All day long, it's just gathering intelligence about the surroundings, and it's trying to understand the reality into which it was born. Then you go horizontal at night, and it goes here above what they commonly call your third eye. Sorry, my camera's about to start following me. Better stop these gestures. Goes here out in front of his children. Oh, whatever.
Micro gestures. Just use like micro gestures.
Yeah, exactly. But it goes in front of your forehead as your horizontal, and then descends as you begin to go through the rainbow of sleep. And it comes in and it releases its electrical content into you and formulates puzzle piece making dreams about the things that you encountered in that day, the things that you've seen, the things you've heard and experienced, and so on. And they come out to be pictures about what you believe reality to be. And so those are maintenance dreams. Right? I mean, you wouldn't expect anything other than 3 rays, would you?
Yeah.
It's got to be an elimination, it's got to be a maintenance, and it's got to be an evolutionary type of thing, isn't there? The 3 rays in the ray of creation.
Would the maintenance dreams be the dreams where like the different centers are interacting with each other and that's what's causing the dreams?
That's a problem, actually, because what it means is that you're not sleeping correctly. It means that one center isn't going to sleep and it's like poking at the other ones.
Okay.
You should actually be able to go to sleep in about 30 seconds. After you hit the pillow, you should be able to, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're in gold. That's what you should be able to do. But oftentimes, because of the way that we run our lives in the centers and the misuse of centers, you've got the thinking center mulling something over, refusing to go to sleep like a bad kid.
Yeah.
You weren't a bad kid. But refusing to go to bed and bugging the other ones. Like it's thinking about something that happened at work, and it's like talking to the emotional center. Wake up! I got something to say. Wake up! Right? And the higher lives are, shh, go to bed. Right? Keep it down in there. Go to sleep. I won't come in again and tell you. Yeah, but that's what that is. When you have kinds of dreams where the centers are talking, it's not their time. The centers are actually supposed to be rejuvenating themselves during that time. They should be asleep, quiet, getting their fresh influx of energy that they need for the next day. Yeah, I mean, centers tend to die at different times too. If you live a life based primarily in one center versus another, or neglecting your certain centers, then when the end of your life comes, they begin to die at different times. You can see this where someone, like their moving center has begun the process of dying or has died. Yeah. And they basically don't have, all they are is instinctive at that point in time. Now, they can still think, they can still emote, but their body doesn't function correctly. Or their thinking center dies, and the moving center, being the giant that it is, tries to take over. And so you visit old folks' homes, yeah, and you see reminiscing, constant reminiscing. When I was in the war, yada, yada, yada. And they tell the same stories. You know, you come in, grandpa, grandma, whatever. Come in and they're telling the same story. You leave, you come back the next time, same story. And that's because the moving center is trying to take over for the thinking center, which has already perished. Should have had a funeral for it. There's a way to prevent it, and that is becoming man number 4, because then you get all of your centers working at the same level of energy, and they continue to work at that level of energy. So all of them die at the same time, hopefully. Did you know this already? No?
Not fully, no.
Or the emotional center might be the only thing left. And they've spent their entire life being angry. And so all they are is angry, you know, from that point forward. Everything pisses them off or makes them angry. Or you get the little old lady, you know, looking out the window, just smiling for no apparent reason, just, you know, ha, 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 like every, you know, it's just what content is still in there that's able to exude or exert itself. Nothing else is really functioning or not functioning well for that matter.
So if it was down to that point, what I'm receiving right now is that like the soul or whatever is keeping this body alive is wanting to keep it alive to experience more,
Well,
or
nothing
like
likes
it's
to
not
die.
wanting to. Yeah.
I mean, nothing likes to die. You know, if you've got a moving center that's still functioning, you're not. Don't take this the wrong way. You're not human in the way that human was meant to be, but it still wants to live. All right. I'm not calling people in this unfortunate position, which brings me sadness to see it. I'm not calling them non-human.
Yeah.
But they will still just continue to try and function as best they can until that center goes. Okay, let's move on. Do you have enough info to begin to develop your ability to detect the nature of the day? It starts with a physical. Boy, there's a quote, isn't there? Never mind. It'll come to me. I'll send it out in email if it's super important. But it has to do with this principle that every electrical act has to be confirmed with a physical act if you want it in your life. That's how to develop the ability to detect the nature of the day, to have it classified as predictive in the real sense of the term predictive, or understand? And I'll tell you what, you know, going back to tarot for a moment, we could get, you know, card 18, card 13, card, just looking for the dark ones, you know, 10, right? 15, 16. I could sit down in front of you and pull nothing but those cards where it was like, you know, oh, the scary cards in the tarot deck. And I might give you the most beautiful reading you've ever had. You say to me, Pierce, you know, this looks disastrous, right? Absolutely disastrous. And I'll tell you, no, it's not, because I have a different kind of connection with those cards than you might generally encounter in the world. Yeah, I'll give you such a beautiful, wonderful reading about what's, you know, the forces at play in your life. Whereas if you go to, you know, Madame Blavatsky or whatever, I don't know if she would delve in tarot, but you understand, right? You know, with the crystal ball, that, you know, that one. You go to that one and get a reading, and it's just by the book. Yeah. And I've never seen a tall, dark stranger in the tarot, right? You will meet a tall, dark stranger. Of course you will. 9 billion people on the planet. You're going to meet a tall, dark stranger someday. Anyway, you understand? It's about your own connection to it. If you want it, you work for it. I don't care if you're using coins or yarrow sticks or a pendulum or a. Don't use a Ouija board, please. All right? That's dangerous. It's dangerous because it means yes, yes. Literally. We, yeah. Yes, yes. It means that you're open to anything in the astral light that wants to come bug you. And the truth of the matter is, an angel won't come talk to you unless you're at the level of angel. In other words, if you have those kinds of assemblies, they're not going to come help you out. All right? They've got things to do. They do. But the lower orders of the astral light are more than happy to attend someone who's saying yes to everything, whatever's around. Yeah. So please, I mean, it's not my place to tell you what to do with your life, but it's a strong suggestion to leave that department alone. Okay. Let me challenge something else, please. Mark, I'm going to rely on you for this one.
Anyway,
Because you're aware of a grid that Leo laid out one time, having to do with the prioritization of family life versus what is it, like work life, God life, your Eminent
No.
life, those sorts of things. Yeah, give it to us.
it was family first.
Hold on. 1, family.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2.
Work second.
Okay.
Emin third.
Emin third. Can I just say way?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean, but I'll say way. All right.
Yeah.
Emin was a way, is a way. Doesn't matter. Yeah. All right. Now, it's a good grid. It makes sense on the surface, but is it true? If you were on a deserted island with nothing but your family, the archives, and whittling a boat for
And
escape.
what?
Whittling a boat, out of coconut trees and
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
or fishing
Yeah.
rod, whatever the case you might need, whatever your work is.
Yeah.
What do you say, priority wise? Does this still hold?
No.
Why?
The need to get food, which will be to would be number one.
Okay. In that context, what about just in your own life now? Does that actually hold true? Does that actually apply?
No, not for me.
I would agree. Now, it's really up to you, right? It's not up to me to say, okay, we're going to rearrange this grid here and reprioritize it. What I want you to do is to cast your own faculties at it and find out what's true for you. Because I'll tell you, for me, way comes first. It really does. It comes first. And part of my assemblies in this category are that if something is interfering with my way, my work, my way work, whatever you want to call it, then it needs to go.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, but it needs to go. Yeah, and that can be work, that can be family, that can be whatever the case might be. If it's actually hindering my road up the way of creation, it needs to go. Now, I'm not saying that should be yours, but I can't just lock, stock, and barrel buy into this is how it should be because Leo said it. I can't.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I'm bringing this up because it's really something that I would like you to consider doing when it comes to things that you've learned in a way, whatever way that might be, even whatever, any kind of way that you've encountered. Take it in, take it apart, and see if it actually applies to you, because every person's different. We talked about this, haven't we? You need to make it your own. And it's hard to do when there's, millions of written words in something like the archives. because it can be very easy to just go, yeah, that's a good thing, right? But you will actually make more progress in your own journey, in your own way, if you take the time to do that and say, does this work for me? Because in the end, didn't the Emin anagram to in me and mine?
Yeah.
Not in him.
Yeah.
Not in that fella, not in anything else.
Yeah.
In me, mine. Does it fit? Does it work? This should be your criteria. And let me go down even one more level, because I did start off earlier saying that you should know in yourself what the difference between the way is and a way. A way is a body of teachings, a body of methods, or a body of techniques. That's all a way is. And you can look at almost anything that wasn't perverted out of the gate as a way. You can take Taoism, for example, the way it actually appeared. That was a way. Buddhism, a way. Can't say Christianity because it's like too broad, right? But you can,
yeah,
you can still look at it as each individual kind of segment of it as being a way. The way only wants one thing. Do you know what that is? I can sum the whole thing up for you in one word.
Unity.
refinement.
Huh?
Refinement.
Yep, that's a method. That's
Would-
a way. That would fall into the category of a way.
Right.
What did you say, Corvo?
Would unity be it?
No, because that would exclude the hermits that discover the way through a way of hermeticism. Yeah, being solitary. I'll tell you. Freedom. Now, what is freedom? I mean it in the broadest sense of the word. Are you free? Are you free?
No.
Come on, everyone.
No.
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 That's the easiest question I've asked all day, huh? Are you free? No. Yeah, because if you were free, well, your life would be so different. If you had freedom in every aspect of your life, I'm talking about ultimate freedom, freedom to be a being. Can you still hear me from here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the only criteria of going from a way to the way is freedom. The question you always need to ask yourself when you encounter life scenarios or things that happen in your life is, does it give me more freedom or not? If it reduces your freedom, then you're probably veering off of a way to try and find the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty easy criteria to live your life by. If it offers you more freedom, then it's leading you to the way. If it takes away your freedom, it's leading you astray. Ooh, yeah, there we go. There's a Pierceism. A good one. Right?
Yeah.
I like to keep things simple because it's easy to get convoluted and bogged down in, well, every way that shows up on the planet has its own body with it, doesn't it? It incarnates with a set of doctrines, principles, techniques, teachings, whatever the case might be. The way, which I would say the primordial essence of the evolutionary signal, is one word: freedom. That's it. Now you say, okay, well, my job. Let's take some practical examples. My job, it prevents my freedom. Work things like that through. Because it's very easy to just throw a blanket statement over something and say, therefore I should quit my job. Look at the consequences of doing that. If you quit your job or quit school, right, in 2 of your cases, quit school, you end up homeless, having to scrounge for tin cans to get, your next meal, and having to freeze on cold winter days, or, all the things that go with that. Can you look at the two and say, do I have more or less freedom? And probably the answer is I have less freedom. So then you can begin to put criteria in place for the things that you must do under the category of discipline to be able to engender freedom in yourself, right? You understand? I'm not saying just, go into the mountains, grow a beard and get strange, because that's the ultimate freedom. I know a couple of you that want to do that very badly, right? But
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
yeah, maybe the event. You understand? Use your reasoning with it. Right? I'm not up here saying abandon reality and go off and do all this type of stuff, okay? But begin to process things in your life. Look at them from that standpoint of, does it give you more freedom or less freedom? And does the outcome of that give you more or less freedom? And does the outcome of that give you more or less freedom? Because I'll tell you, if I quit my job, I wouldn't be able to do this with you. I would then lack a freedom because I wouldn't have electricity and I wouldn't have, all the other things that make this possible. So my work gives me more freedom. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm not picking on this criteria because you might look at it from that standpoint and find it to be true, and that's fine. What's your term, Mark, about the dogmatizing the Emin, making it into a religion, or the holy scriptures of the Emin and all this type of stuff? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Even scripture, how
Yeah,
people
scripture, right?
blindly follow it,
I
even
would
if
say
it's out of
much less,
date. Yeah.
wouldn't it? I mean, because if you just accept things without actually going through the process of it,
Mm.
I would rather have 5 archives that I know really well and that I've actually worked out from my own life
Mm.
than what, 400, 500, I don't know how many there are in total, but there's a lot. Yeah. 400 or 500 that I just go, yeah, that makes sense, and move on and never actually work it out and see if it's true for me. Be mine. Yeah. You'll be much more developed, much more advanced in your own spiritual progress by really doing the work of a couple things rather than a survey of many things. That's just my life to yours, okay? Take it or leave it. It's just my practical advice. I'm not telling you what to do. Not my place, is it? Okay, where does it leave y'all? Oh,
Sorry, I'm not laughing at the pain. I'm laughing at the expression of how you react to it.
are you animated? Are you capable of being animated?
Ooh. Now that depends on what you mean by animated.
I mean, animated with the freedom of expression in any situation. The freedom, again, back to this word, the freedom to express yourself in the way that's appropriate, not the way that's expected.
I'd like to
Yeah.
think,
Well, is that honest?
yeah,
Okay.
from the point of view that feeling safe enough to be able to say something, and if it's completely wildly out, then what you'd say would steer it back into the understandings and perceptions of how to correct it.
Yeah. All right. Okay, for the Americans here, do you know what First Amendment auditors are?
No.
No.
I really got sucked into this for a while. They're called First Amendment auditors, and the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States has 5 elements to it. I'm not going to go into those 5 elements because this isn't a political class on politics or whatever, but there are people that do this on YouTube and Facebook and whatnot, and they go to public places like the library or police stations or post offices, or just standing on the sidewalk in front of buildings. Yeah. And they have a video camera and they start recording people.
Oh,
Anything they can see,
Yeah.
anything that's emitting photons from where they're standing in public is fair game. Yeah. And you wouldn't believe, well, you might believe it because, we've all been around a while, but the kind of heat that they take for doing that, you have no right to film me, or this is talking about the post office, this is a private business, you need to leave, right? And the auditor's like, no, I don't. Right? Because it's a protected action in the First Amendment of the Constitution. And some of them take it even farther, right? They strap a sidearm to themselves and also audit their Second Amendment right, which is the right to bear arms. I'm bringing it up not because I'm saying this is something you all should go do, but it is absolutely fascinating to watch these from the standpoint of the idea of freedom. It really is, because you get to see what people are like and what they think their freedoms are and what they actually are, and so on and so forth. Anyway, don't get too into them. I did it. It says a lot about human nature, and I'm kind of a student of humanity at the moment, so it's interesting to watch. But check it out if you want to. First Amendment auditors. Try not to spend more than 12 hours a day watching them, because then it just becomes an addiction. Set a limit for yourself. No more than 12 hours. Not gonna Anyway. All right, where does this leave us? But I mean, we can wrap it up. We can press on with something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's good.
All right.
Press on, or
A song you want me to sing?
oh no, I said press on.
yeah.
Yeah, stand up and give us an audience.
I can do Michigan J. Frog pretty well from the Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my baby. The frog.
Yeah.
No?
Mm.
You have the reference, Mark? You must have.
No.
had it there. No?
Julie got it on tape.
Have we?
Yeah.
It's the frog in the top
Yeah.
and this guy stumbles across it, and this frog has these singing and dancing talents. He's got a little cane and a top hat, and he's, does the hello, my baby, hello, my baby. And then anytime, the guy's like amazed, right, and wants to keep the frog and show him off to his friends and coworkers and colleagues and whatnot. And every time he takes the frog out of the box, it just sits there and goes, ribbit, and it won't do it for him. All he does is drives the man insane.
All right. Yeah.
But no,
I did.
All right.
We're pretty sure we have.
I did have a cool analogy that I wanted to run by everyone if you're all right with that.
go for it.
Okay, so let me grab the plant really quick. So I was sitting here basically looking at this plant, right? It's a ghost plant.
Watering it too much.
Have I been? It says it waters every 11 days.
It's trying to get away from your water. That's why it's growing so tall. If you're watering it.
Well, I was saying, because my mom has one of these, and the stem actually grows like super long, and then like only the end of it
too much
has
water.
like leaves.
Anyway, carry on.
Okay, so I was looking at that and thinking of the thing of like reincarnation, basically.
Hang on, one second.
And
1 second, 1 second.
yeah,
Hannah, correct me then.
Was that?
Didn't say anything.
Correct me. Is that right about the water?
Um, yeah, I've got some aloe vera, but I don't water it that often. You're supposed to water it more during the summer months than the winter.
Yeah. Any event, Corvo, reincarnation.
yes.
Go for it.
So looking at the plant, it's sitting in front of me, so I can kind of go back to that. But I was noticing at like the very top of the plant here, there's like tiny little sprouts coming out, just like
Yeah.
peeking through just barely. And then it goes down the plant and down the plant, and then like the ones on the very bottom are kind of like dry of life and energy, like all the energies got sucked out of it. And eventually, after that leaf goes through its life cycle, it falls off the plant, enters the soil, and then basically sends back up the shoot or the stem to produce new leaves. And in myself, I thought that was kind of like reincarnation in a sense where a human sprouts out, it lives this life, and then towards the end, it falls off, dies, its energy gets reabsorbed and sent back up through the shoot as a new life, same energy, new life, basically.
Well, it's
And the recurrence.
recurrence, what you're describing. Recurrence is living the same life over and over, or I should say, not even the same life over and over, but the same role over and over. An example of reincarnation in the context of what you're demonstrating there would be for it to produce a runner or a shoot or a new life separate from the original.
Okay.
So a leaf is just an example of a recurring phenomenon for that particular plant.
Okay.
In the context of society, we don't recur. Well, there's a couple scenarios. Okay, one scenario is that you're born, you live your life, you die at a certain point in time, and then you recur back at the moment of your birth, and you do it again and do it again and do it again. That's if you fulfilled your role, your planetary role, purposefully. What I mean by that is that, let's say, someone who becomes the president of the United States, or anybody really, someone who becomes an engineer of some kind, or whatever the case might be, right? If they did it the way that the planet needed them to do it, in other words, they sounded a certain signal, a certain frequency, then they're a prime candidate for doing it all over again. Right back into there, live their life, do the same thing over again, right back in again and again and again. That's recurrence, the idea of recurrence, because it serves a planetary purpose. The planet needs a certain signal. You did a good job at it. Back you go, right?
Okay.
If you do a bad job at it, that's where the universe begins to question why. And it ends up in a couple of different scenarios. Scenario number one is you just cease, right? Not useful. Couldn't find a place for you in creation. Therefore, what you might call moon food. At least you can be useful in the process of someone else, giving it a shot. Or you do something so different that something else in the universe goes, now wait a minute, this man or lady on this planet was supposed to be this, but they ended up, I don't know, having a sun level connection, for example, being able to be generative to the way or the evolutionary signal on the planet. And it goes, right, let's reincarnate that person to be able to continue that, because it's serving a higher purpose, a solar or a star level purpose, or some other planet or some other star or some other son because you know you did a good job. It's just like the janitor. It's really the story of the janitor. You know, did you ever see Good Will Hunting? You know the story Good Will Hunting? Beautiful story. Beautiful story about this concept that I'm trying to convey here. He's a kind of a thug. I can't remember who played it now. Was it Matt Damon or something? Anyway,
Yeah, Matt Damon.
Yeah, Matt Damon. Yeah. Anyway, he's kind of, you know, like he works as a janitor at this school, mopping and sweeping and cleaning up, you know, all of these elite students' garbage. I think it was something like MIT, like a prestigious school. Yeah. And they had on a chalkboard this math equation, this high-level calculus kind of thing going on. And he's sweeping the floor and he, you know, ponders it for a little bit and solves it, right? And then continues on. And meanwhile, the professor is putting these challenges on the board for the students to be able to solve because they're like basically unsolvable puzzles, unsolvable math problems, or very difficult to solve in the least. And so the professor comes in and is like, you know, who did it? Who solved it? Who solved this this math equation? Nobody knows. Yeah, none of the students did, or at least they won't fess up to it. And so he goes on this hunt, puts a more difficult problem on the board the next time. Sure enough, Will, I think his name probably was, you know, comes up and solves it again. And he does this a couple of times until finally the professor figures out that it's just this janitor that probably didn't even graduate high school, you know, maybe graduate high school, but still wasn't a member of the college at the time, was the one solving these problems. That's an example of stepping outside of your role. Really good example of stepping outside of your role in life, having and something noticing higher up the rate of creation and going, you know, this boy doesn't need to be sweeping floors. He needs to be given the tools to do that kind of thing better. Yeah. I think that's a good analogy. Can't take it too far, right?
Yeah.
But sort of the nature of it. It's in a certain sense, it's not fair to say that we develop ourselves. We try to put out the signal of someone who really is trying. That's pretty much how it begins. Try to live your life outside of your role and get noticed by creation, and then creation will begin to give you the opportunity to do that, to begin to make that return to God and creation. It's kind of how it works. You have to make the first step, though. Yeah, you have to try and live outside your role. Well, we're not all powerful. You don't, you know, I'm going to develop myself, and doesn't work that way. Send out that signal and try to get noticed. Or you know what? Actually, don't even do that. Like in the case of Good Will Hunting, he just did it because he loved doing it. Right? He solved the problem because he loved doing it. I would urge you to fall in love with the laws, fall in love with some aspect of this work or the way that lights you up and inspires you. And trust me, creation will notice because so few people are doing it. You become a beacon, absolute beacon. Everything stops and pays attention to that bright spark amidst the darkness. Now, I will say something, Corvo. Your approach is spot on because that's all it takes. All it takes is looking at something in your environment and actually taking the time to be with it for a little while in a different, unique way. Yeah? How many people buy one of those plants, some succulent, set it on a shelf, give it an ice cube every few weeks or whatever the case might be. They like that. It's slow, by the way. Put an ice cube in there. But never think twice about it. Never ponder over why it's shaped the way that it is or why, what it is about it.
Colors.
What does it have? Because everything in nature has its own secret. Absolutely everything in nature can teach you something. For crying out loud, I've got mushrooms growing out of this banana tree plant.
Huh.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. plan on doing some detection on it. It's amazing. Anyway, so few people do that. You always know you're on the right track if you feel inspired, because that is we've talked about the various foods before. We've got the physical food that you eat,
Mhm.
but
Impressions.
yeah, the air you breathe and the impressions. But I think people believe oftentimes that impressions is enough. And in the work, they say that it is kind of an unfulfilled dough. Sounds the note of dough, but it's incomplete. In other words, it doesn't have enough oomph to be able to go re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. It doesn't have enough oomph in it to be able to do that. Part of the aspect of this work having to do with the intake of that food of impressions is invigorating them. And when you invigorate those impressions, you feel, well, it manifests itself in the complex as a feeling of inspiration. You feel inspired by it. You're like, oh, wow, how cool is that? Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely, after that happened, I was just like, I felt like this like uplifting, and it was just like this like wowness of like, that's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you've been here physically in this room.
Yes. Yeah.
You can verify for this crowd here that I've got chalkboards all over the place.
Yeah.
Don't I?
Yeah, he does.
I don't know what room I'm going to be in when all of
Yeah.
a sudden something's going to hit me and I go, oh, I got to get this out, got to get it down.
Yeah.
Good. All right, let's wrap it up here, okay? I think it's good.
Okay.
Hopefully you have something to work with. Develop your own form of divinatory or predictive aspect. You now have the tools to know how to do that. If it, I mean, Corvo, if you want to go get a bunch of chicken bones out of the trash and start
La,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? It's because it does come from you, but you have to be able to give it physical expression.
Yeah.
Rolling your eyes in the back of your head and becoming a trance medium, for the most part, it's baloney. In cases where it is working, it's a bit sketchy, in my opinion. But this is a safe way into being able to develop that kind of nature, to be predictive about things. Just learn about it, give it expression. And the reason why flipping a coin works is because the law of two permeates everything, absolutely permeating everything. It's fundamental. And whatever frequency is in the room at the time that you're asking, or whatever's in your complex, is going to influence the results of heads or tails, for example. And they've done experiments actually, where they'll get 1,000 people. They did an electronic coin toss. It was like whether some radioactive particle emitted a bit of radiation or not. I think that's how they set the experiment up. And it's equivalent. It's the electronic equivalent to a coin toss. Yeah, either it did or it didn't. And it's kind of random when it does and doesn't. And they got 1,000 people or whatever, all concentrating on a particular outcome. They wanted it to come out as heads. Yeah. And they did many, many, many of these, and they saw that when people were focusing on the outcome being heads, that it was predominantly heads, statistically improbable, predominantly heads, or tails, or whatever the case might be that this group was concentrating on. Now, they think that it was the group that was influencing it, but I'll tell you, it works actually a little bit differently than that. They were invoking one half of the law of two as their primary focus, and that's what was in the atmosphere, in the nature of it. I actually did it from miles away too, but so yeah, they were influencing it, but not quite the way that they think. But when you do that, yeah, you kind of become a radio to what's in the environment. And if you don't like the idea of randomness, like a coin toss being able to predict something, then get a pendulum, because then you're in touch with your actual body. Right? That's a man number one method, isn't it? Isn't this curious? Right? We just talked about man number 1, 2, and 3 forms of divination.
Yes.
Yeah. Man number 1, pendulum. Man number 2, that's the body, right? The micro tremors and whatnot. Man number 2, tarot, for sure, or the cups, yeah, reading tea leaves or coffee grounds or whatever, because you're dealing in symbols. Man number 3, you're dealing in mathematics, ones and zeros, binary, coin tosses, or anything else that has a more of a counterintuitive, deterministic nature to it. Understand that string of words? Counterintuitive, deterministic nature. In other words, you wouldn't think that it works, but it becomes deterministic. In other words, the outcome is known, I suppose. And I'll tell you, I actually, because of some of my long and sordid past with things like Taoism, I have very strong propensity for things like I Ching. Definitely. All right. But it's not about the coins or the Yarrow sticks. They don't know anything. It's you. Let me close with one more thing, because I think this is important. Hell, it's actually not. Forget it. Another time, because this will open up another 2-3 hours. So sorry. Now you should at least pause for a second and see what that did inside you.
Well, a thought came to mind. You've said it electrically, so you might as well say what.
You should be an attorney. Your Honor. Okay, so if I said it electrically, why don't you go divine what it was?
You should be an attorney as well, then.
Well said. Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
You know the
Thank you.
process, so just register, and we'll see you whenever you're able to make it.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you all.
See you all. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks.